Some of the most profound stories, the ones that completely redraw the maps of our lives, they don't take years to unfold. Sometimes the biggest change can happen in just a single defining moment. This is one of those stories. And this idea right here, it really sets the stage for everything that follows. It's this quiet understanding that our entire world can pivot on the axis of just a few hours.
So, to really get what happened, we have to look at what came before it. We have to understand that feeling of certainty, of standing on a foundation that feels absolutely unshakable. This is where we begin, not in the distant past, but just last night. A moment of absolute connection, where the bond between two people feels like the most solid, the most real thing in the world. And this wasn't just a passing feeling. It was a deep belief. A shared conviction that their connection was strong enough to hold back the entire world, that it was something certain, solid, almost untouchable. But then, just as quickly as that world was built, it all came apart. This is the turn, that jarring, sudden shift that happens somewhere between one sunset and the next sunrise. I mean, the speed of this shift is just breathtaking. What was once this powerful declaration of unity, of strength, had, by morning, just evaporated into the most profound kind of distance you can imagine. And what's so striking is the finality of it. It wasn't a slow erosion or a gradual fading away. It was a total and complete vanishing of everything that was there just the night before. It was just gone. So you have to ask, how does something like this even happen? Well, what's crucial here is understanding what didn't happen. There was no big, loud, dramatic fight. Nothing you could point to and say, that's the reason. Instead, there was this, a sudden, cold, and irreversible silence. The kind of quiet that's somehow heavier and more definitive than any argument could ever be. And that, of course, brings us to the aftermath. When a connection ends without a sound, what are you left with? This section is all about that search for answers, and the empty space it leaves behind. This is the key emotional state we're talking about. It's a very specific kind of confusion, right? A disorientation that comes from an unexplained departure. It's that feeling of looking for a reason where none is being offered. So what do? Well, that natural human instinct just kicks right in. You start sifting through the past, replaying old laughs, shared plans, those moments of conviction, trying desperately to find the clue you must have missed. But that search, it doesn't give you a clear answer. Instead, all it reveals are the broken pieces of what used to be whole. You find all these half-finished thoughts, things that were left unsaid, ideas that never fully formed. You find these broken verses, promises that now sound like incomplete poems. And then there's this heavy, internal feeling of loss, a sense that something inside you is being extinguished by all that silence. So, after you've searched through all those memories, you eventually land on a difficult realization. This is where we get to the core uncomfortable truth that starts to emerge from the confusion. And here's the thing that really gets to you. The deepest pain wasn't actually from the departure itself. It was from the shattering of a core belief, the idea that love, on its own, should be enough to guarantee forever. And that leads to this brutal but honest lesson at the heart of the story. It's a really hard truth to swallow, that people and their feelings can transform with a speed that just defies our expectations and what we want to believe. And the consequence of that kind of change? It's just devastating. All those shared plans, that future that seemed so solid, it was all revealed to be incredibly fragile, as temporary as words written on a shore, just waiting to be erased by a single, indifferent wave. So where do you go from here? The end of this story isn't about finding a neat resolution. It's really about acceptance and the quiet kind of transformation that follows. Some moments, they don't have to be long to become these permanent dividing lines in the story of our lives. There's the before, there's the moment itself, and then there's the entirely new landscape of after. And this is what that final stage of acceptance looks like. It's not a perfect healing, not a return to how things were. It's an understanding that this experience, this wound, it's now woven into the fabric of who you are. It just becomes a part of your story. And that leaves us with one final thought. turning this story outward, towards you. It's a quiet invitation to reflect on your own timeline, on those single days or nights that created a before and an after for you. What were they? And how did they shape the person you are today?